Gary here with MACMOST. Let's look at using the built-in password manager on your Mac. So macOS has had a built-in password manager for years. But starting with macOS Sequoia, you've got a standalone app now. So the passwords functionality isn't really new. It's just that previously you accessed it in Safari settings or in system settings. So before I even show you the app, let's look at how you would normally use it. Say if you were creating a new password for a site in Safari. So here I'm at a site. I'm going to use archive.org as an example, and I'm going to click the sign up link. So I'm going to enter an email address here, and then I'm going to choose a screen name, and now I'm going to choose a password. Notice that when I click in the field, I get this little menu here that asks if I want to use a strong password. The icon here shows me the icon for the Passwords app on your Mac and also a small version of the icon for this site. So I could just click here and it will insert a strong password. Now sometimes you may not see this here. Depends on how the site is constructed. But you often see this button to the right here. This is also part of the built-in Passwords Manager on your Mac. So you can click this and you can choose to use a new strong password. Use a new strong password without special characters, so there won't be any dashes or punctuation or anything like that. Or you can use an existing password that you may have already found for the site. In this case, it also gives me the option to use recently generated passwords. Remember, I said it would remember that password even if things didn't go right on the sign up page. And also I could fill in the password again that I just used. I'm going to select the first option here and go back and use this password. And now I'm going to sign up. Now later on, when I want to sign on to the site and I go to the login page, if I click on the ID or email address field here, you'll see that it shows me that there's an entry already for this. So I can simply select that and it will fill that in, and it'll fill in the password as well. Sometimes it may not fill in the password, which is fine. You click on the password field and fill that in independently. You also often get this little key icon here and use that to fill it in as well. That's the basic process. You could see for general usage, you don't actually even need to use the Passwords app. It's only there if you need to access the passwords directly. By the way, if you find my videos valuable, consider joining the more than 2,000 others that support MACMOST at Patreon. You get exclusive content, course discounts, and more. Read about it right here. I'm going to launch passwords with Launchpad here. I'll just search for passwords, but you can launch it with Spotlight. You could find it in the Applications folder. You could add this to your dock. Just launch it any way that you normally launch apps. So the Passwords app, when it starts off, it's locked and you just need to use your Mac account ID. Of course, if you've got a Mac with Touch ID on a key, you can use that as well. Now you're in the app, and the app has a similar interface to some other apps like Reminders and Notes. You can see these pinned categories here on the left in the left sidebar, but you can also turn off the left sidebar with this button here. Then you see a list of items. I've got all selected to show me all passwords, and I could see a list of all passwords here. So I could scroll through this list and find the password I need. So say I need to log on to that site using another device, or I just want to take that password and copy and paste it somewhere, I can access them here. Here's that one I just created. I can click there and I can see the entry here. It'll show me the username. If I move my pointer over the password field, it shows me the password. If I click here, it gives me the option to copy the password to the clipboard. It also tells me what website it's for. This is actually one of the most important parts of any password manager. It's that the password is tied to a site. This prevents phishing attacks. So if you're sent by a text message or email to a site that looks like the right site, but it's not, it's got maybe some other URL, like maybe archive.org something else, or archive spelled with a 1 instead of an I. Then when you go to fill in the password, it's not going to recognize that the password is for that site. You also get the ability to set up a verification code. So for sites that have two-factor authentication, you would click here and you can use a setup key or a QR image. So a setup key usually is when you're on the site, if they say you can set up two-factor authentication, typically you click and they show you a QR code, but also a short string that gives you a code that you can then paste into here, and then you can get two-factor authentication. Now you can also edit this. So you could click edit here, and then you can edit all of these things. So for instance, you manually entered in a password by accident or something, you can actually put the password in here. And also there's a notes field, so you can add notes about this. So for instance, maybe if you manage multiple accounts for your work, you could have notes about each account saying what it's for. Now let's take another scenario. Let's say you already have a password for a site, but you did that before you used the built-in password manager on Mac. So in this case, I'm going to log into this site. So here I'm going to enter my username, and then I'm going to type my password. Notice it doesn't show me any passwords that it has here. I can go to the Passwords app. I can suggest a new password in case this is actually a sign up page, not a login page. But in this case, Passwords doesn't know my password here. So I'm going to type it in manually. And now I'm going to log in. And when I do, I get this dialog here that asks if I want to save this password. I'm going to, of course, say yes. And now in the Passwords app, I can search for it. So I'm going to search using the box here at the top. And there it is. I'm going to select this. And there you can see the password has been saved. Now you have other ways to get passwords in here. Of course, you can click the plus button here and you can enter in all the information manually, or more likely copy and paste it. Now notice here it does say website, app, or label, meaning you can just enter any text you want in here. This gives us the opportunity to actually enter in miscellaneous data. For instance, I can enter in something like this for a padlock or a gate code or something like that. And in this case, I could put the code here and then save. Or if it's more complex information than that, I could actually go in notes here and add a more detailed note about the information. But I do have to provide some sort of password. So enter in just some basic information or some sort of random password like it'll suggest here just to fill that space if you need. Hopefully in the future, they'll let us actually add things that are just notes and don't have a password associated with them. There are also other things you can access in here. For instance, those two-factor codes, you could jump right to them by clicking here and it'll just show you a list of all the accounts that have two-factor codes and then what the current code is. Of course, it's constantly changing. So you could see the code there for this login. You could also see it in the login itself. So if I go over to this here, you could see it under verification code. And also, it will ask to fill that in just like filling in a password when you're at the site. So you still don't need to go to the Passwords app to access that code. Also, if you've got any passkeys, which will work basically just like passwords in the Password Manager, they would be listed here. You would get a passkey from the site. The site would have to have a setup method for passkeys, and every site does it a little differently. But once you do set up a passkey, you would actually see them in this section. You also see Wi-Fi passwords here. So you see Wi-Fi passwords for all of the different services. You're probably going to see a lot here because every time you sign on to a service at a hotel or a coffee shop or something like that, it's going to be added here. Even if you sign up on your iPhone, it's going to come over to your Mac because iCloud is sharing that information with all your devices. So you can go and see a Wi-Fi password and you can actually get that password if you want. Click on it, copy it. You can even show a QR code. It'll show up there. So if you have a friend or something with a phone, they can actually point it at your Mac screen to get that password. And when you are in passwords here and you do want to delete a password, you can control click and delete, or you could go into it and edit and then delete password is at the bottom. You can delete the password and there's a deleted section. If you go in here, you'll notice that deleted items remain there for 30 days. It's a good safety net in case you accidentally deleted the wrong account or thought you were finished with an account, but it turns out you need to log in one last time to do something. You can recover them from here by clicking here, and then you've got a button to completely delete them right now or recover, and they'll go back into the regular list. You also have a list of security recommendations here. There's nothing here right now, but let me force one. So I have an account here now with a password that is obviously a bad password. And if I click here, it will tell me this is an easily guessed password. But you'll see other warnings here as well. For instance, if the password is found in some sort of public database of leaked passwords, then it will show that as well. Now there are some settings here you should know about. You can turn on or off whether it's suggesting strong passwords for you to use on websites or it's automatically creating passkeys in conjunction with the website. And you can turn off detect compromised passwords if you like. But a feature that I know a lot of people are going to love is this one, show passwords in menu bar. And when you turn that on, you get a menu bar item here that allows you to look at your passwords without even opening up the Passwords app. So you just enter in your code or use Touch ID, and then you get a way to search your passwords right here in the menu bar. You can just bring that up and go into a password and easily get passwords. There are also some settings in other places. In System Settings, under General, you have the Autofill and Password section here. And then here you can open passwords. You can also turn on autofill passwords and passkeys, and this will affect apps as well as websites. So of course, developers can create apps that actually allow you to use the Passwords app to fill in the password there. So passwords aren't just something for the browser. They're also things that you can use in apps. You've got a setting for using passkeys, passwords, and codes to autofill forms. So you can turn that off if you want. And also this is a handy one here. It's when you get verification codes as text messages, you can have those automatically get deleted after you use them. Also, a few of the things you'll find in the app. Under File, import passwords. So if you're switching from another passwords manager, you should have the ability there to export those passwords as a CSV file. Then you can use this option to import them into the Passwords app. You also have the ability here to export all passwords. So you can export the passwords into a CSV file and then back them up somewhere. Another thing you can do here is create a shared group. So you can use this to share passwords with other people, with trusted contacts or your family. Now, one of the basic ideas behind a passwords manager is to have your passwords on all your devices. So using iCloud, you can have your passwords available on your Mac, your iPhone, your iPad, and so on. If you go into System Settings and then you go to iCloud, one of the options here is Passwords. And then you find that your iPad and your iPhone also have a Passwords app, as long as you're on iOS or iPadOS 18 or newer, and you'll see the same passwords across all of those. If you create a new password on your iPhone, you'll see it show up on your Mac. If you create one on your Mac, you'll see it show up on your iPad. They'll be all over. And in addition to that, you can also access them if you've got a Windows device. So you can look here in Help and you could see information on how to set up passwords on a Windows PC. It takes you to this Apple support page talking about the iCloud for Windows app and how you can use that there. Now, I've already mentioned third-party apps being able to use this on the Mac, but what about other browsers? Well, Apple has allowed other browsers to access these just like other apps can. Now, whether those other browsers choose to use that is up to them. So hopefully in the future, we see all the other browsers adopt the ability to use the Passwords app in their Mac versions. But until then, you do have the handy menu item at the top that I showed you, so you could easily get your passwords to be able to fill out those login pages on other browsers as well. Most users won't need a third-party passwords manager, but it's okay if you want to use one. For instance, you may like one because of its cross-platform compatibility with Android devices. You may also want to use one because, say, at work, they're using one and sharing passwords with it. And also, it often doesn't hurt to use both. You can use the Passwords app and a third-party passwords manager. And when you create a new password, it usually asks in both places whether or not you want to save that password, and you can. So you can have your passwords in two places if you want to. If you're interested in how iCloud stores the passwords and whether it's end-to-end encrypted, here is Apple's security overview document. And you could see here that passwords is listed and it's shown as end-to-end encrypted for both standard data protection and if you have advanced data protection turned on. I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.